I'm going to talk about iodine in avocado, but mainly about iodine for starters, because it's a very new nutrient. So I thought it was important also to explain to you some general principles of why we feel that iodine should be added to plant nutrition. A little bit about SQM, you saw some in the video, but I'd like to share this information so that you understand why we are working on iodine specifically. We are working on iodine because it coexists in the caliche ore, and the caliche ore is found here in the north of Chile, and it contains nitric nitrogen, which is the base of the potassium nitrate, which you will find in SQM's products, but it also contains iodine. And iodine is traditionally taken out of this ore and sold for a variety of different purposes, some medicinal, some nutritional, but mainly industrial purposes. But we were also interested to find out whether there's a role of iodine for plants. Well, to jump forward a bit, yes, the research which we done showed that iodine has a role of plant, which is now also acknowledged by the International Fertilizers Association. SQM is supporter of smart nutrient management, which involves all plant nutrients. So not just NPK, as is here in the picture of the 4R strategy, but there's at least 16 more nutrients which should be taken into account when you look at the plant for optimal plant nutrition. And of course, also for these micronutrients, it's important that you apply them at the right source, the right rate, the right timing, and the right placement, as we do for all other nutrients. Now, the case for iodine, why it's now included as a beneficial nutrient in this infographic, is that it's described by the new edition of Marshner's under a new chapter, really talking about the beneficial nutrients as part of the plant nutrient concept. And the basis of that was this paper from Italy, from the group of Professor Parata and Claudia Kieferna, who found that iodine actually binds covalently to proteins in plants. And together with some other evidence, this is the base of calling iodine nowadays a beneficial plant nutrient. I will show some of this fundamental work. There are 82 proteins in the plants, and they are present both in the leaves and the roots of the plant. And when you apply iodine to a plant, there's at least 48 genes in the shoots and 531 genes in the roots that are uniquely regulated by iodine. And when I say uniquely, they do not respond to boron or calcium or any other halogen. They really respond only to iodine. And from all this information, we understand that iodine is needed for timely flowering and fruit production. It's important for photosynthesis, which of course means increased biomass, but also a better filling of the fruits because more sugars will be available. But also it's important from root growth and more particularly defense from stress and a process called calcium signaling in the plant, which helps the plant to respond to climate changes. And you can read more about this in this paper, or if you drop a line to Suzette, she will be welcome to share with you some of these basic information literature. So iodine is present in proteins in the chloroplasts, which are important for the photosynthesis, and it's present on enzymes called class 3 peroxidases. And these enzymes are important in the whole process, which helps to protect the plant from stress, both in the root zone and in the above ground parts, and of course, during fruit development and flowering. All this work was done on this plant, Arabidopsis thaliana, which has no economic significance at all for agronomists and farmers, but it's very, very important for researchers and scientists because we know all the genome and know all the proteins, and it's the basic plant you start with when you want to find out any concept of nutrients in plants. How do they move? How do they work? Why are they important for plants? So what the scientists did, they made a nutrient solution which had a very, very low amount of iodine. It could not be measured by using ultra pure fertilizer salt and ultra pure water. And they found that actually plants that do not have access to a whole lot of iodine, they bloom later, they have less leaf biomass, shorter roots, less seeds, especially if you compare them to plants that did give what we would call an adequate level of iodine in the range of the micromolar dosage. But you can only see this in comparison. So a farmer that would have a crop that is very low on iodine would not know it has an iodine deficiency because you don't have any specific symptoms. It's just, slower than it is when you would add the iodine, which makes it logical why we did not know that plants can have an iodine deficiency before. So as said, it's important also for root growth, as shown in this study, also in Arabidopsis in an agar medium. And here the control contains 0.6 micromoles of iodine, which is present in the agar. And you see that if you add between 5 and 10 micromoles of iodine, here you see a good effect on the leaf, on the root growth. Not only the longer roots, but also more lateral root formation in these plants. You can also provide an excess of iodine, as you also can provide an excess of boron or some other micronutrients. So it's important to keep a good eye on your dosage. And the question now is, of course, it's very, very nice to have all this fundamental knowledge and understand that iodine does something in plants and what it can do in plants. But what about crops in practice? Where can you expect an iodine deficiency, and when can you expect to benefit from actually adding iodine to your nutrient solution? And from a lot of trials which we did in practice using iodine combined with potassium nitrate, because it's easy for the farmers to apply it in that way and get approximately a good dose of iodine in their crops. We now understand that you see the most effect of iodine when you add it under arid circumstances or in crops under protection. And this is because these crops are not rained on. And in natural ecosystems, iodine from rain, from precipitation, is the most important source of readily available iodine for plants. And of course, the iodine will come with the irrigation water in these systems. And we identified that if there's less than 1 micromole of iodine per liter in your irrigation water, this is where you can see the benefit of actually adding some iodine to your nutrient solution. And this gets more important when you have some stress on the crop. When you have a crop that is really doing very, very well, it will not be easy to spot a detrimental effect of a lack of iodine. So you will not see easily a beneficial effect of adding of iodine, but you will see it when there is some environmental stress like heat or low light or salinity in your crop. So what we did is we looked at sources of irrigation water in a lot of horticultural areas around the world with the focus on those with some arid regions or horticultural crop production under protection, so in greenhouses or shade houses or tunnels. And this was done in 23 countries with a total of 307 samples. And we found that actually 95% of all these samples have an iodine concentration below 1 micromole per liter. And 50% of all these samples are even lower with a median of 0.1 micromole per liter. So it's logical in these systems to expect that there might be a benefit of adding iodine to your nutrient solution. Specifically for New Zealand, and these results are published in the paper. You can find it when you scan this QR code. Also here, 93% of all samples was below the 1 micromole per liter. And samples that were above, so the exceptions, those were exclusively borehole samples. So from boreholes, you can find almost no iodine, but you can also find sometimes a bit higher iodine. But usually in the piped water or surface water, and this was mainly from dams, so river water caught in dams in South Africa, there you find little iodine in general. So as you can see from this slide, is that the focus for SQM was mainly on our vegetable crops, because those are also the protected cropping systems, and of course also higher value crops in a lot of regions. And on average, when you add iodine, and we provide it together with potassium nitrate, this is mainly to prevent farmers from making mistakes and applying too much iodine, because you really do not want to do that. But when you apply it with potassium nitrate, then the risk of overdosing of iodine is pretty small. And on average, we achieved 12% more yield in these demonstration trials. You see, for avocado, we do not have a lot of trial and a lot of data. So I'm going to show you some tomato data first for inspiration, and then I'm going to show you what we actually know about iodine in avocados. So tomato is by far our best studied crop for the effect of iodine in agricultural and commercial systems. We know you can increase the fruit size, or more precisely said, you will lower your chances of having a small fruits in the crop due to environmental stresses. You also find more antioxidants in these fruits, but most pronouncedly also we find more calcium in these fruits. And this would, of course, be very interesting also in the light of what Neil just told us about your calcium. But I have to put a disclaimer here and tell you that we really do not know how this works in avocado. So this is really something which we could look into further to see if the beneficial effect here of ultrasaline of iodine with potassium nitrate on fruit calcium would also occur in avocado trees when you have a cultivar or a farm that is really, really difficult to get your calcium in your fruits. So to come to avocado, this is an example of Peru, and this was done on a commercial farm where they also measure almost weekly the diameter of their fruits in order to have a good prediction on when they are ready to harvest for your export. We had a very good increase in your total yield of exportable quality, but you can see in this graph, and the application started about a month before they start the measurement of the fruits, when the fruits are just only set. So here you see a steady increase of the growth rate of the fruits when iodine was applied, compared to a situation where potassium nitrate was applied and the rest all things equal. In Mexico, also we have a higher yield, specifically in this segment where there's the size limit set on the importer of these fruits to America from Mexico. And you can see here we also measured the water iodine, which was very low, 0.04 micromoles iodine per liter, and we applied 245 kilograms ultrasaline per hectare in biweekly applications through the fertigation system. So coming to South Africa, we realized that you do not apply a lot of potassium nitrate in the early stages, sometimes for flower induction, but not really for the fruit set. And knowing that iodine can have an effect on fruit set and a prevention of fruit drop due to climate circumstances, we wanted to do a replicated trial in South Africa using individual tree replicates, and you can find more information in the publication of last year's yearbook of your South African Avocado Association. We applied soil iodine at a rate of 359 grams per hectare, and two foliar sprays of iodine, which will only apply 53 grams of iodine per hectare. And in my opinion, that's pretty low. But if you would time it exactly right, maybe you can find an effect. And we looked at fruit set, fruit drop, and a yield of Maluma Haas avocado in Tsenin area. So we go. Now, the first year we find a quite spectacular increase in yields from both the soil and the foliar application, but I have to put a disclaimer on that. In that year, the yield of the total orchard was very, very low because there was a severe drought and a lack of water at the time of the bloom. So these figures might be somewhat, how do you call it, pumped up due to that. So the second year, we decided also to look better in the the difference between potassium nitrate, which is applied here, and potassium iodide, which is applied here, and compare that to potassium sulfate applied in that period. And you see that already there's an better fruit set at 90 days after the first application when you use potassium nitrate compared to potassium sulfate, but with iodine it gets better. And this was the fruit set in the year before when we had also the 160% extra yield. So that was almost exclusively due to the better fruit set in that orchard. We also looked at the fruit drop. It was a little bit lower in year 1, but there were hardly any fruits on the tree to drop. So I really do not want to draw any conclusion based on this one. But from the second year here, you see that iodine actually helped to reduce the fruit drop in that period, while there was no difference between the two potassium sources. So here's something special iodine did, probably related to the protection against stress in that orchard. So to wrap up to the conclusion, we saw yield increase, both from soil and foliar applied the first year. We did not repeat the foliar application in the second year, and we still have a lot of questions, but it does seem that there is not enough iodine to go around in South Africa, so it might be beneficial. We just need to really find out if specifically for South Africa where these advantages are. So we are just scratching the surface on avocado and iodine in general, but specifically also for South Africa. So future research could be around your foliar spray, find out those critical stages when you really need to have iodine in the leaves and the fruits, but also to look at the effect of uptake and distribution of iodine in the different crop stages when you apply via your fertigation, and to see how this matches also with your best practices of all other nutrients in your avocado orchard. So still a lot to find out. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I think we have still some 7 minutes to answer some of your questions here. And of course, as Suzette said, you're welcome to drop Suzette a line and she will forward it to me and we can discuss some more. So thank you.
You got it, Katja. Very interesting iodine. Very good. There was a few questions. Will iodine only have an effect on healthy roots, or will it also help with Phytophthora? And then Yakun replied, maybe Katja can shortly elaborate or make a link with the use of iodine in citrus in Florida, where greening disease is a concern.
Yeah, Koen knows me well. Of course, iodine is a plant nutrient and it's not a phytosanitary product, right? So the use of iodine will not cure any disease, because it's the form of iodine which we apply it in is an ionic form which has no biocidal properties, right? Having said that, of course, a well-fed plant used with all the nutrients well balanced will be more resilient to overcome an infection of diseases. And we have some instances where we see this happen in practice, like in cucumbers and powdery mildew in different countries. We've seen an orchard of lemons in California where iodine helped the orchard to recover after flooding, which had many negative effects on the roots apart from Phytophthora and Fusarium in that orchard. But with iodine, it helped trees to recover and get back to their usual quality after a couple of years. And also in Florida, where we have greening diseases, we do see a better root system when iodine is applied. So that means that there is a little bit more roots for the plant to lose to diseases without any negative effects on the production. And that's what we can say on that topic.
Okay, thanks. Okay, more questions. What are the popular method of extracting iodine from soil and leaves? And what instruments are used to measure the iodine concentration in this matrix? Soil and leaves.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for that question, because indeed, as iodine is a very new plant nutrient, a lot of laboratories are not offering iodine measurements, so that there's really some work to be done with that. I think in South Africa now SGS can do some analysis of water and soil, and I think also leaves, right? Suzette knows better than me, being in touch with
We're
the
not on the
labs.
leaves yet.
Not yet,
Yes.
not yet.
Not
So,
yet.
what is the popular method? Traditionally, for foods, it's extracted with alkaline extraction methods. They use a compound called TMAH, which is not so friendly for the people in the laboratory to use. But I do think it's possible to have a protocol with alkaline extraction of all the iodine species from the leaves, and then you measure it with ICP-MS, preferably when you look at the low concentrations. And for water also, you can for water you can also do an acid extraction, although alkaline extraction would be preferable. And then you also analyze with ICP-MS, and that there are some food standards that can be followed more or less and adapted for the plant matrices. And if you're interested, we're welcome to share some information on that.
Okay, we'll follow up with that. Might just also ask a question. What is the recommended nitric, nitrogen, and ammonium nitrogen ratio in fertigation of avocado crops?
Mm. Yeah, that's indeed an interesting question, and that would be also one for Neil to hop into, because the of course there's a lot more knowledge on that in these big companies. But you will need some nitric nitrogen to get the calcium, both calcium and potassium in, as Neil also said. And the amount of ammonical nitrogen you will want to have will strongly depend on your pH in your soil and in your root zone. If you have an alkaline soil, you might want to use a little bit of more of ammonical nitrogen to bring your pH down. If you already have a very acid soil, then you might do up on your ratio of nitric nitrogen to bring your pH down a bit. So it strongly depends on your situation.
The last question. The approach of iodine use in crops is very good. Are there enough scientific studies demonstrating this? And if so, which crop would be most responsive to this element?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The body of evidence for iodine as a beneficial nutrient is steadily growing. The first publication was published in 2021, but even before that, there were people studying uptake of iodine in crops and learning also about beneficial effects of iodine if you apply it in the small doses, so really as a micronutrient. So milligrams and micromoles instead of kilograms and millimoles. So yes, there is scientific studies demonstrate the agronomic benefits in a range of crops. Traditionally, vegetable crops, so fruiting vegetables and leaf vegetables have been most studied. So there's most information on those. Orchard trees, because they're very hard to find responses within 1 year. When you change fertilizer programs, typically you need a couple of years to really understand what happens with your fertilizers, how the crop responds to that. The evidence is still building, and it's mainly done now with the first empirical evidences like we do in our demonstration trials, but we could benefit from more scientific studies in those type of crops.
I see there's no questions left. My email is on the Dropbox if you have any further questions. Thank you for Katja and Neil for this very informative day. We'll see you again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.